Hey there. So in this video, I'm actually doing my first ever HDMI replacement on an Xbox One Series S. That's the white ones. There's a million videos on how to take these apart on YouTube, so I kind of skipped that part. And basically, you can kind of see it right there. This is one that's damaged, and you can kind of see the thing sticking up there. All right, so how we're going to do this is a few steps. First step is we're going to use hot air station, which is this device here, to actually remove the HDMI port. And then we're going to prepare the HDMI socket, if you will, for soldering again. Now, these factories use very high melting point solder, unleaded solder. So we want to replace it with leaded solder to make it easier so we don't burn up the board and melt a bunch of things and whatnot. So we're going to go ahead and do that now, and we'll go into the microscope here in 2 seconds. A lot of times when people watch these videos on removing these things, it really looks a lot simpler than it really is. But it just goes to tell you that this kind of shit takes practice. So these two and these two over here, there's 4 supports, and they have the most solder, and they're using factory solder, which means you can desolder the back and it's not going to go anywhere unless these 4 are easily melted as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to just put some low melt solder in play. Just that will bring the overall melting temperature down for these supports. Yeah, look at that. See how it barely held on and it didn't melt the bottom? Wow. What a mess. Big difference. Yeah, that's the difference between low melt solder. It's not even, it didn't even melt the other solder. Wow. That's hot. Okay. See what we can do. See if we can get some low melt solder in there. What the hell, man? Are you kidding me? It's not enough to melt this? Fucking kidding me? All right, so I'm not gonna lie, that was a pain in the ass to get that off. Like I said, it's my first one I've done, although I have a lot of experience in this sort of thing. But the first actual Xbox HDMI port, it looks terrible, right? But the thing is that you have to be super patient with this, because if you go too hard and you don't take your time, you end up ripping all of this and ripping traces like these things here. But I'll tell you, I mean, imagine having to, it's about a maybe half inch from there to there. Imagine having to make sure that everything here is liquid at one time. That's the not exactly the easiest thing. So the good news is that's done. So now we can do some cleanup. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this, which is solder wick. That will actually wick up the solder on here, and hopefully even through the holes there. That would be nice. Save us a lot of trouble, because ideally when we're done we want to make sure we have literally open holes, similar to that right there, you know. All right, so let's see if we can get this cleaned up. Alrighty. When you see it turn silver, that is the solder going on the wick. And you see how much nicer that looks? If this was regular factory solder we were dealing with, it would be nothing like this. It would just be a freaking mess. So ideally, those holes are now going to come up as empty. No, it's never that easy. Let me get some more. So you keep having to cut that off as you use it. All right, so let's see if we can get in there one more time. Come on, you can do it. Sometimes you get in there and get it. Not quite. All right, so we'll do this other side. Maybe we'll get luckier over here. All right. That's some solder that's a little bit stubborn right there. There we go. So what we end up with here is literally like brand new factory pads, basically, to work with, and that is ideal. You want to make sure it's as clean as possible when you go to put the new HDMI in place. So let's see if we can get these. I'm going to turn this upside down. I'm using a wedge like that. So now I'm going to try to put the point like that in those holes to see if we can get that solder wicked out. When you go with a small point like that, it gets to where you want to go, but unfortunately it also makes it so it doesn't apply as much heat. So this may be a bit of a headache here, but we'll get it eventually. You just have to be patient. Trying to make sure that doesn't move. Now look at that one. There's a lot of factory solder in that one because it's not even melting. It's literally not melting. So I think I'll put a little more solder in all 4 of these. And when it sticks to the solder like that, or it balls up, that's when it's not really making a good mix. And then it does that. That's when it just mixed in there, when it fell in. So when you're lowering the melting point by using leaded solder, watch this. So at first it just balls up, kind of like a drop of water on oil. And then once it drops in, like that, that's when it appears that it has become one with the other solder. All right, let's try this one. This is the big stubborn one right here. See how it's balled up? And we got to wait for it to fall. Watch this. Right now it's sitting on top of, there it goes. See that? That's when it became homogeneous with the solder that's already there. Okay. Now we have a good amount of solder in there. All right. I feel good about this. All right, let's try this once again. Again, this is patience. There's a lot of guys out there that I watch that really make it look insanely easy. People like Joy Does Tech and Northridge Fix are masters at this, and Tronics Fix as well. All right, here we go. Let's try this once again. Come on, you can do it. Once you see a whole bunch go through there, that usually is a good sign. Usually, I say. And then sometimes if you don't have enough heat, this will literally solder itself. Okay, that looked really good right there. Let's see if we got anything good happening. No! Okay. Well, I do have one other tool I can try. It's a solder sucker. Basically, you load it by pushing it. Well, anyhow, it's basically a spring-loaded mechanism that you can put over there and melt the solder and suck it on up this thing. What a pain in the butt. Oops, I pushed the wrong button. I'm an idiot. All right, let's try this again here. Okay. All right, so I flipped it over because the soldering is literally pushing it through the board. So we're on the other side trying to get the last bits from here, and of course it's being quite difficult. It really is here. We got it almost, but then there's this side. But shouldn't be too terribly difficult because it's sticking out quite a bit. Sometimes it's literally solders itself, and that is frustrating. Solders itself to the board. And I don't know if I just need to apply more heat or what. But dealing with this factory solder is the biggest headache, biggest ever. What a mess. All right. All right. Gonna keep trying on this. I'll be back when it's finished. Okay. After like an hour plus, I finally got the solder off of here. Man, I'm telling you what, much respect to people who do this in 2 seconds, unlike me. So now we gotta go ahead and get it cleaned up, and then we can get it prepared for a replacement HDMI port. Whew, what a mess. Okay, but I guess if anything, this is kind of an exercise in patience, because you know, me a while back, I probably would have just ripped the shit out of it. You know, it would have been a complete mess, and it would have been pulled apart and really broken to pieces, and I would have probably lost my patience with it. But now, instead of that, in this case, we have a proper foundation for the new HDMI port. All right. I do see a lot of people out there using Q-tips, you know, alcohol, and then they'll rub it like this with a Q-tip, and I guess that works, but I find that it works a lot better if you use a toothbrush. So see if I can get a good example of cleaning it with a toothbrush. Let's see if I can get a nice shot here. Okay, so focus. All right, so I mean, there's kind of some stuff on there, so let's try with toothbrush, and man, it just works way better, and you get rid of all the stuff that wouldn't come off with a Q-tip. And I'm just kind of taking my time getting this all clean because I want it to be nearly perfect when I start to redo it. All right, so just so you can see what I just took off, that is the HDMI port. Doesn't look terribly bad, but then you look at the actual port. And there's something to be said about a really good microscope. I believe that this was damaged from my tweezers, but this right here was the original problem that broke, and if you can see that, it literally shorted out against ground, and if I'm not mistaken, that pin is not ground, but it shorted it out. So we will have a new port in, and this should be as good as new. All right, so as I'm recording this actual part of the video right now, it's about 4 days after the original start of the video, because I had to order some more HDMI cables. These things are terribly tiny, as you can see, and this is a Q-tip, so you can see how small these leads are, and that's why I don't actually use Q-tips, because they leave those little pieces everywhere. At any rate, I actually screwed up one of these, and I will show a video of how badly I screwed it up. because technique is everything, and I changed the way I did it. And as I'm, I am learning this, so I changed the way I did it, and it made all the difference in the world. Also, you might notice that there's one pin out of place here, right there. See how it's kind of a little bit bent? So I'm going to bend it back just a hair. Try to anyway. I mean, it's probably fine. But let's try to get that bent over. There we go. Perfect. All right. Okay, let me show you how bad the last one got. We have the task of cleaning this up. It's not exactly the easiest thing in the world, but we should be able to do it. There we go. Okay, the reason that happened was because I tinned the pads just like you see here with just enough solder to work, but then I had solder on my iron as well, and that was just a big dumb mistake. So I found that tinning the pads first and using a either new or clean as you can possibly get it HDMI jack is the only way to go, because once you get solder up in the back end of this connector, it's game over. So what I'm going to do, I've got my heat station ready to go, and I should just be able to melt this and then drop this in place, and it should literally be that easy. So first thing I'm going to do, it's hard to tell if those are actually melted at all, but I'll put this in place just like that. Looks like I can see some liquefied ones. As long as we get one or two to hold, then we're good to go, and then we can kind of touch it up. Alright, as you can see, it is not connected, so we will play with this a little bit more, but we'll get it. Okay, what I've done is I've decided to go ahead and use my soldering iron, even in spite of how it looked before, because before I was using a gigantic tip and a lot of solder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack down that and that to hold it in place, and then I'm going to very gently and carefully hit these with some solder until they're all good to go. Hopefully we won't run into any troubles. This is something very new to me, so hopefully I won't screw something up. All right, so we will do the first one. These are all perfectly lined up. I feel good about those. It doesn't really want to stay there. Probably because I didn't put any flux. So just for the heck of it, I'll throw a little flux on there. Put some on the other side because I'll need it. All right, let's see what we can do. All right, with flux. Hopefully this will smooth this out a bit. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Look at how much that's kind of smoothed it out and flowed it. All right, now we'll do the other one. Give a little more solder on the tip. Okay. Everything's still lined up nicely. Perfect. All right. Now it's in place. So now, this is where it's going to get interesting. Hopefully, we're good to go. So I'm going to just barely hit this. Oh, what am I missing? Flux. All right, here we go. It's like I'm doing one of these at a time. Boy, this makes me nervous. I know they're not lined up. There we go. But they don't look perfect. But we'll just keep working it. Boy, after that mess I made, I'm really nervous. And this is the smallest soldering tip I have. But I'm feeling a little more comfortable with putting a little more solder on there. Yeah. I'm going to let this solidify and test all of these to see where we're at as far as how many of those are actually soldered and strong. Okay, so as it turned out, using my heat gun didn't actually seat all of these as I would like. I probably didn't have enough solder on the pads, but that's okay because I put a little solder on my my iron, and I was able to hit each one of these with just the smallest little tip of my smallest soldering iron tip, and these are all solid. So now the only thing to do is to basically do the supports, which are these things here, but I actually can do that from the other side. It actually works a lot better. So I'm going to lift this way up, flip it over, and looks like I gotta bring it up a little bit. All right, so I can get those wherever it is. There it is. Right. So, of course, this one here is plastic, so you don't do that. But using my soldering iron, I can just come in from this way. And kind of like one of the other videos, you want to hold it till you see it basically drop into place. Oh, I should flux this. I almost forgot. And I'll tell you, it was pretty apprehensive doing this manually because it's so small. All right, here we go. So, I'm going to put some solder on here. That should do it. Now, in just a moment, we'll see it kind of go down in the hole. Once it heats up enough, it should just fall right into place. I think that might be it. Yeah, there we go. And then we're going to go over it again in just a second. What we want to accomplish is to make sure that it's coming through the other side. And to do that, you got to heat the whole board up. I think it's moving around a little bit, so I'm trying to keep it in focus. All right, so we got these here, but they seem to be kind of sitting on top. So we hold this like this, and what we're doing is I'm going to hold it at a different angle. There we go. What we want to do is wait till it drops. You can kind of tell when it does because it won't be sitting on top like this one clearly is. This might be a time to use my hot tweezers. Those go quite a bit higher in temperature. And like say, we're hoping to get these to drop through the... There we go. We're wanting these to drop through this hole here. Let's see what we can accomplish here. Hopefully this is... It's a science, man. It's an art form. That's not wanting to heat up enough. It might not be hot enough just yet. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Okay, that time it fell through. I don't know if you saw that, but once it gets hot enough, there we go. You'll see it kind of fall through the hole there. Now looking on the other side, there we go, that's perfect. And if these are bridged, that's okay because they're grounded. That being said, you know, it's kind of nice to... Okay, so I was having so many issues with that small tip. I went ahead and switched to the larger one, as this will undoubtedly work a lot better. I think we've got it, actually. I think I'm going to just... Yeah, like I say, it doesn't really matter because these are both grounds. But as you just saw how long it kind of took... let's see how short of a time it takes with the larger tip. Right. Kind of like before, we're hoping it will drop in, which it did, but more solder. See, we're wanting it to kind of go through to the top side of the board, ideally. But as you can see with that crescent, it's not completely in there. So we'll hold it here until we see it kind of drop through. And it takes a minute because it has to heat up all the way through. And it's taking its time here. It's melting quick, but all right, let's just give it another second here. You know, the reason I'm actually including all of the issues as well on this is because I want to show that the situation with this is it's not as easy, and people are going to make mistakes, and oh, there we go. People are going to make mistakes doing this, and you know, trial and error, you'll learn it, and that's kind of where I'm at. So I just, you know, down the road when it becomes routine, I will probably take out problems and screw ups and things like that. All right, let's see about this one. All right, so the way those are sitting, it's kind of like you can almost tell that they're kind of on top. So the way to do this is just kind of hold it like that until you see it kind of give way, almost like it falls through. See that? Well, a little bit more. There we go. Hopefully you saw that. And a lot of times it takes on more of the shape of the hole rather than round like this one is. So this one will just take a moment too. Check it out. Oh yeah, that fell right through. Matter of fact, there we go. Yeah, that's pretty much perfect. So now, if we look to the other side, what we want to see, ideally, is we want to see, we want to see it all the way through. And there we go. I mean, that's just one and the other. See, it's all the way through. That is what you want. Wait, that's the wrong one. Oh, okay, yeah. See, you see it's all the way through. And that one is kind of all the way through. I'm going to give just a little more here. There we go. That's about perfect. Look at this one. I am going to call this done. All right, so if you watch this whole video, undoubtedly there are issues with continuity and keeping my timeline together here, but that was kind of where I was at with this one because I had to go back and forth so many times and took it off twice. But in a moment I will have it put back together and we'll plug it up and hopefully we're good to go. All right, so we got it put back together enough to test. Let's hit the power button. That's good. And we'll switch over to the input for that. Hang on. Hitting the power button now. We got the right noise. Fan spinning. Let's see what happens. There we go. Now, truth be told, those staticky lines, I tested this on a different machine with a different HDMI cord and it works perfect. So apparently this is due to lower quality HDMI, but the port itself is working just fine. So if you have any requests on things I should do, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. All right. Awesome. First one was a success. Have a great day.